Okay. You guys ready? Where's this me and you? Okay, I saw him here before. Yeah. Die, 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 da, da, lie, 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 la, da, lie, 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 la, da, lie. Again, thank you to the Chaver and to the sponsors for the breakfast. And without the risk of sounding commercial, like I said before, it'd be great to continue this. It's not so much if you Chaver get together every week and make sure it happens. I think it's very chashuv, and it's Charles landed yesterday morning in Brooklyn, or wherever he landed, and the first thing he does, he sends me a video of what a Syrian breakfast looks like in a shul. I'm like, just like Shirat David, exactly, the thing. So it's all good. We're filling it in. What's that? There's a lot. Yeah, I didn't see any bagels and lights. A bunch of other things there. Also, I also want to make sure we're learning. This is very important. This is very, very chashuv. First of all, Reuven, welcome back. Happy to see you. Very, very happy to see you. One of our friends, his wife needs a big refuah shlema. So I want the learning today, and I want throughout the next week, specifically next week, where there's going to be some, hopefully they'll get to the surgery next week. We should have in mind the whole week Yehudit Bat Stacy or Sarah. They don't know the mother's name, her mother's name. So Yehudit, for now, Yehudit Bat Sarah. Want today's learning to be for it, and as much as we can next week to learn also for her refuah. Also, I just want to say one more thing. Baruch Hashem, this is like we're back. It's fully, things are more or less fully back now. Back in Elul, back in the Zman, back in everything is happening. And my heart is filled with the amount of learning that's going on in the Kehillah. My heart is filled with it. And I want us to just delve into all the opportunities that are there, from early in the morning to later in the morning, till nights, hopefully more, on Shabbos. I feel like we're the luckiest people in the world, so to take as much advantage as possible. B'simcha, kacha lavo el hamelech, mitoch harchavas halev, at the widening of the heart. And but again, for this week, please have in mind Yehudit Bat Sarah. You know, I'm just going to turn this away from you. Turn it a little bit to the... Yeah, thank you. If it's too much, tell me. Okay. Those of you that have the Sefer, we're going to open up. We're in the middle of a beautiful Perek Zayin, Daf Samech Hey, from Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter, Hachana L'Shabbos. Remember last week we began to learn the whole Indian of Shabbos, of Shtraimel B'mkom Tefillin, right? Shabbos is Shtraimel B'mkom Tefillin. We were starting to understand a little bit more of the pnimius of why is it that we don't wear tefillin on Shabbos. We started seeing some amazing things from the Chidah, about Tachtim, Shnim, Ushlishim. There's some beautiful concepts he brought down. Moshe Yikach es ha'ohel. Moshe Rabbeinu takes it all together. Moshe Rabbeinu brings us back the ha'aras of tefillin on Shabbos itself. We're going to see another thing today from the Chidah. This is going to be a very, very, continuing the same line of what we began last week with the light of Shabbos and tefillin being there with us on Shabbos. Just not, I loved how Dov, you came up to me last week, Shabbos morning, and you were like, you know, when someone comes to you and your tefillin, your shel rosh isn't in place. So Dov came up to me on Shabbos morning, he's like, you know, your shel rosh is not it was a good reminder of like just getting my shel rosh on Shabbos, you know, shel yadan on Shabbos. I commented on your shtraimel, so exactly. Okay, so you see the bottom of page Samech. Muva besifrei achida. Brings a lot of the chidah. You know, he brings a lot. Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter, he keeps on bringing the chidah almost every mimer. Muva besifrei achida. Al zeh Shabbat rashi tevot Shabbat Brit Tefillin. That's what we saw last week. Shabbat. The rashi tevot stand for the three otot. The three otot that we have. The ot, Shabbat, Brit, and Tefillin. Shkol advarim alalu klulim b'yom HaShabbos. All three aspects, three, also Shabbos, also Brit, also Tefillin, are all included on Shabbos day. Umevar Achida, and the Chida explains, Shebizman shaya noeg avdus ba'olam, in times when slavery was a thing in the world. I'm not talking about people being enslaved to iPhones. I'm talking about like actual slavery, when slavery was actually really a thing. People had avadim. Haya haseder shele'eved haya beged mesuyam v'sham haya kosher siman miyuchad le'os u'lesiman shehu avdo shel ploni. Lahavdil, it's not really lahavdil, but the closest we could get to understanding what this would look like visually is, the ghetto, yeah, the star. Which was like the star was like the siman of Yudin. He was saying over here that the Avadim used to walk around, they had a beged, an Eved had a beged. Are there any more copies of what we printed? Chaim, you want? The Eved, the Avadim used to have a siman tied to them on their beged, on their garment, and that was a siman, they are an Eved of so-and-so. It was like, that was their heker. Umishaya Eved HaMelech, but if you worked for the king, long live the king. Whoever worked for the king, their simon was made out of silk. And he would actually, everyone else was maybe not that proud to show that what their simon was on their beged, because they're avadim of a slave owner. But to walk around saying, "Oh, I work for here," that's already a big thing. כי זה הרואה שהוא שייך לליגיונו של מלך. וכן מי שהיה עבדו של שר. אך למעשה היה לכל עבד עוד שהוא עבד, שיהיה ניכר לכל הרואה also שהוא עבד. Okay, so this had to do with something that was seen on the outside. Okay, there was a visual that people would see, which would then you would be able to say, I work for, I'm his or I'm his. Walk around like this, I'm his or I'm his. You already see where he's going with this, right? You can already see where he's going for this. Mevar achida. She'a'ois shel bris tefillin v'Shabbos einam os she'anu avadim. Yeah, we also have a symbol. We wear it during the week on our head and on our arm. And on Shabbos, it's there b'fchinas kula or. But it's not an os that we're slaves. Ela os shu anu banim lemelech malchei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The tefillin that I wear is an os that I'm an eved to the king. I'm not. I work for God. I work for the king. I work for the minister. So the siman that I put on myself, which for many people, to put a siman on you to show that you're a slave to someone else, is Gehenna. It's absolute Gehenna. I don't know any countries that still do this. Do you know? Any countries that... Huh? It is still like that? You're assuming or you're...
Where?
Really? That they have on they have like a... No. We know Avdus exists. I'm saying that there's like a siman. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. That there's actually a siman that says, "Oh, he's your master." Yeah, I'm sure there is, by the way. Still, they still do that. But to be able to use my tefillin, and that's my siman of, hey, I'm an eved of who? I'm an Eved HaMelech. I'm an Eved HaMalchei Amlachim. That's what an os is by a Jew. An oath by a Jew is saying, of course I belong, but I belong to something that's the greatest privilege to belong to. It's the club that you all want to be part of. Not the club that says, listen, this is my lot in this world. Mani aseh. I have to say one thing. We still see this here, even though we don't do it, l'maaseh, but it's people's mentality. We got to know the Sri Lankan Chevra over the last few years here, right? Because they're right? And I'm telling you, we had a Sri Lankan work by us for 5 years. No, 8 years, I think. 8 years. And many of you know the story. She was found without life just a few months ago. She lived in a tiny apartment beneath the Makolet. And you saw that their erech of life is different. It's not that we were mishabed. It's not that you were enslaved. They actually felt very privileged that they can make a decent amount of money. The woman that worked by us, she didn't have an erech chaim at all. She's such a sweet woman. Mamash, such a sweet woman. The glow that she had when she would because she basically was with most of my children from birth, since they're born. And the erech of life, that's what I'm talking about, the erech of life that she was operating on, and I see with a lot of the other chevra here, it's a different value of life. There's an avdus that's mutba. It's mutba. It's embedded in them. That's a different erech of life of what we're used to. So it's not like, we're slave on those of us that have some of this chevra come and work in our homes a little bit, that we are a slave. It's a little thing. But you could see in their value. Any conversation we had with her was like they're operating on a different value of life. Mashu acher. It's so sad. Rahman. When I said, does it exist in the world? Maybe I'm answering my own question. Maybe it exists in the world, not on the level of they walk around saying Katz or Cantor or Zelozeh, but a Yid's badge that he wears is pride. Their badges that they're kivyachol wearing is not pride. So to wear a badge of pride and honor, this is what we have. He's saying no. The Shulchan Aruch says This is beautiful, right? I love this. Shulchan Aruch says that an eved, that the siman of an eved being set free is when his master gives him tefillin.
It's like Yitziat Mitzrayim.
Yeah, nachon, yafé מאוד. Yeah. She'eved she'iniach lo rabo tefillin yotze lecherus, I would assume it's an eved ivri.
It's where it's from anyway.
Maybe it's his own property. I don't know exactly.
Because it shows he's converted.
נכון, גיירוס, נכון, סליחה, נכון. ואם כן מוכח שתפילין אינם עוז של עבדוס, אלא עוז של בן חורן. That shows that the tefillin itself is an עוז, dafka, of being משועבד תחיר. Like you have, it's granted, you're granted freedom. ועוד הוכיח כן, שהוא עוז שבנים אנו להשם אלוקינו. This also proves, this shows to us this oath that we are children to the Ribono Shel Olam. Ki kvar nifsak goy sheshavas chayav misa. What else do we know about this oath that for us resembles freedom? If this oath that for us resembles freedom is kept by someone that's not granted this permission, what's their din? Kaput. They're out. Ki mishtamesh, this is lashon, it's so beautiful. Ki mishtameshu b'sharbito shel hamelech. Because you are using the sharvit. They say the sharvit. How do you say it? Scepter. Scepter. You're using the scepter of the king. This is not your thing. Sharvit Shem. This ties in very much what we were learning in the Alter Rebbe Shir this week, on Wednesday, about the inyan of Pnimius Alev and who gets access to Sharvit HaMelech. Ki mishtameshu b'sharbito shel hamelech, using the king's stick, the staff. V'rak ben mutar lo lishtamesh b'sharbit hamelech. Who can use it? It's the child. The son can use the sharbit of the melech. Ve'im ken muchach she'ashabes hu os shebanim anu lemalcho shel olam. So he's showing us that not only is Shabbos and os, accessing the badge, accessing the os, is a siman that we are banim lemalcho shel olam. Do you know what's amazing? I shared this with you one time. I was in the States, I was in the East Coast for, I don't remember, I mean, those days it was just a tour, just a week of concerts and stuff. One morning it was Rosh Chodesh, I came to do Rosh Chodesh in a prominent high school in the Five Towns. And the kids were to get them to put on tefillin, both Shel Yad and Shel Rosh was like a whole geschäft. To have them keep the tefillin on was just milchama. I saw Rabbanim going through milchamas with these children. Milchamas. No, I didn't point that it's him. I pointed that it's a school that he's affiliated, that he was affiliated with, right? I saw like the war. And also the night before, the Nets upset the Knicks. That was and how do I know that? Because during Hallel, that was the Sichas Chaverim, like it was unbelievable, right? Huh? Just because it was also, right, now, be'emes, these kids are so crazy because why should that be, if anything, it should be that if the Knicks beat the Nets, that's the upset. Whatever, that's already Lemevinim, that's already something else, right? Huh? Right, they're living in the 90s, these kids, so now, right. But what I'm saying over here is like this. How do we give over to children that tefillin is an oath of this badge of honor that I work for the king? My grandfather, Rav Shlomo, he got the Purple Heart. He was in World War II, and he was in the Pacific jungles, and he was guarding, got shot up in his chest. He was guarding a hospital during World War II, and he faked dead when they came and gunned down whoever was injured. And you know, we have his badges of honor, right? His badges of honor that he was working. You know, what pride he had, what pride it is for his children. Tefillin's not given over to the youth as an oath, Beini Uben Bnei Yisrael. Tefillin's not there yet. We have to revolutionize the concept, unless maybe you sit with Rav Kadosh and you sit with him Mosh Tzarich. Anyone that's had the privilege of getting their tefillin from Rav Kadosh, and I highly recommend it to anyone here that Be'ezer Hashem in the right time, their children, their boys will become bar mitzvah. That's an inyan of like, oh, when I receive the badge of honor. And as I receive it, I know this is something that I'm holding on to. And this is something that fills me with tremendous, tremendous pride. But it's something that when I put on my tefillin, it should remind me, Banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. That's what he's saying. Now, if he's saying all that about tefillin, what does that mean? It means that that is also the sod of Shabbos as well. That Shabbos is my badge that I walk around on, and you can feel this more in America. On Shabbos, I walk around with my unseen badge. I see the world continuing to do whatever they have to do, run to wherever they have to go to, being meshubah to whatever they're meshubah to. And I'm living in the same world, but I'm not. Because I'm bani matem l'Hashem Elokeichem. I'm living in the same physical structure, and yet I'm not. I'm removed from there. I'm operating completely differently. So that's we should be zocher for that wherever we are all the time. Even here, it needs to be, upped. That game has to be upped. And he continues, lehalan. Eveinu ma shekosov b'sefer HaKadosh Toldos Yaakov Yosef, שבעיצומו של Shabbos Kodesh lo yasiach adam da'ato me'aShabbos. Just like you're not supposed to ever stop thinking about the fact that you're wearing tefillin, so too you have to consciously, constantly be aware Shabbos Hayom L'Hashem. Shabbos Hayom L'Hashem. So you think, what do you mean I'm keeping Shabbos? Of course I'm aware that I'm Shabbos. It doesn't work like that. There's an active avodah that needs to be done all the time on Shabbos itself, on the bechina of as if like I'm touching my tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh to remind me that this is where I am. So too with Shabbos as well, I have to bring in the consciousness all the time of Shabbos Hayom L'Hashem. What are some good reminders that works for you guys of not having Hesach Hadas that it's Shabbos today?
Being around other people who also want that.
Oh, that's a big one. Yeah.
Not speaking or trying not to speak full on Shabbat.
Yeah, I mean, the Chazal tell us what it is, right? Yeah.
I didn't hear you say.
Saying that your speech, being conscious of your speech, not being the same speech the way you talk during the week. Just the way you talk. Mimtzo chefzecha v'daber davar. That's the drush there. The lavush. What else? The ochel. Our day is filled with. You wanted to say something?
No,
You're asking. Our day is filled with constant reminders of like ki'ilu touching our tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh. The more the merrier. The more the merrier. Your Torah Shabbat Peh is what works by you for you. The more the merrier. More and more. Ki kishem shechayav adam lemashmesh betfillin kol shah. Just like a person has to be touching his tefillin all the time. Kal v'chomer sheb'Shabbos tzarich lios kein. All the more so we know. Obviously on Shabbos it has to be like this. V'zeh l'shon ha'kodosh reish parshas Noach. This is how the Toldos Yaakov Yosef says in the parish on Parshas Noach. V'zeh shekosov esa Elokim hishalech Noach. This is beautiful. That Noach, what kind of relationship did Noach have with the Ribono Shel Olam? Eta Elokim, with God, hithalech Noach. Hitalech is a very interesting word in Hebrew. What's the lashon of hitalech?
Sounds reflexive. Sounds like he's doing it to himself.
Yeah, hitalech. Yeah, hitpael. Yeah, the Ishbitzer says that's also by Eschanan as lashon hitpael. You're doing it to yourself. You become something. So it's interesting. Very good. Very good. We have a very famous song of was it Nomi Shemer? Kum vehitalech ba'aretz. You never heard that song? בתמיל ומקל, ובוודאי תפגוש בדרך. Sure, you can tell what kind of a community we live in. No one knows the song. It's like olive based by the Israelis. Hitalech, kum vehitalech ba'aretz means make yourself someone that's walking. Zot omeret, okay, I'll give you a better example to understand the lashon of hitalech. What is the most famous nigun of Rabbi Nachman that's a mistake? Right. What's the mistake there? Very good. Ve'ikar lo, Rabbi Nachman never said, not that we know, ve'ikar lo lefached klal. He said, ve'ikar lo lehitpached klal. What's the difference between the two? It's a world of a difference. Lo lefached klal, don't ever be scared. It's one thing. Lo lehitpached klal means don't make yourself scared. So now let's darshan that into hitalech. What would you say? What is hitalech? Lalechet means to walk.
Get yourself going. Motivate, yeah.
It's this tnuat hanefesh, Rav Ginsburg would call this a tnua nafshit. It's like making yourself active consciously in the walking with God. Kum v'italech ba, all the stuff we talk about conscious Judaism, right? All the stuff Gedalia was saying when he was like, kum v'italech. So it says, et Elokim hitalech Noach. By the way, Rav Shlomo has a long drush on this. What's the difference between Noach and Avram in this regard. So by Noach it says, Et Elokim yitalech Noach,
יתהלך לפניי ויהיה תמים.
and by Avram Avinu it says, Hitalech lefanai v'heyeh tamim. What's the difference between the two? It,
With or before?
yeah, Et Elokim yitalech Noach is almost like, well, Noach was making himself walk and feel God when God would come and appear to him or like talk to him or tell him, build the teva. By Avram Avinu is Hitalech lefanai v'heyeh tamim. I trust you, Avram Avinu. You feel it? Start getting into the groove. Walk even before me. Hitalech lefanai. Stay tamim. Don't let it get to your head. You have it. You're holding on to the secret of knowing how to walk the streets of the world. Big chiluk between the two. Again, Et Elokim hitalech Noach. Avram Avinu is hitalech. That same action of making yourself part of the movement. You go for it. Hitalech lefanai v'yeh tamim. I got your back. Back inside. וזהו שכוסו בסדר כי מצליח נוח. שעל כל פנים בשבת הנקרא נוח, what's Shabbos called? Noach's bechina is really Shabbos, Kabbalah Shabbos, Noach. ידבק מחשבתו את האלוקים. That this place called Noach, Shabbos Menucha, that's the place of דבקות מחשבה אין אלוקים, או במחשבה, או בדיבור, או במעשה על כל פנים. No matter how you do it. Any way you do it, connect yourself in one of these three manners, that the way that you think, the way that you speak, and the way that you act has Shabbos Dika energy into it. Has Shabbos Dika energy into it. The meals, the way I eat a meal on Shabbos, so forget the fact that the food is different. Okay? Forget the fact that the food is different. The manner in which I take in food to my mouth, that's called hitalech noach. The manner, now that's easy because usually, like you said, we're around people, the Shabbos atmosphere of the Seudah, it's a little bit different. Also, diburim is a little bit easier to have more of a consciousness that it's Shabbos. Why? Well, I spend more time in shul, and hopefully even the sichas chaverim at a, and this is very, very important, the dibur at a Shabbos table, that defines what community you belong to, I'm telling you. Shebaduk u'menusa. If the Shabbos table is an attempt to memorize the opening theme song of 80s sitcoms, you're out. It's not happening. That's not what the inyan is. Now that's an extreme example. But really, if your conversation at the Shabbos table, right, between chaverim, regarding your children, it's another story. Regarding friends at the table, if that conversation could easily also happen on a Tuesday morning and you couldn't tell the difference, yesh baya. Yesh baya. Houston, we have a problem. Yesh baya. Now, again, those are two visible things that are easier. That's talking about, again, the ma'aseh and the dibur. Where does it get really hard? To make sure that it's a Shabbos-dika way of using hitalech, that's machshava. See, machshava, to control thoughts, like bichlal is hard, but to make sure that your machshava is a different way of thinking on Shabbos than it is during the week, that's already a whole nother world.
It's the same as mitacheh, not to think thoughts that are good.
Very good. Very
Not to
nachon.
go ba'anacha.
Nachon.
Don't produce something.
Now there's a mimer of the Alter Rebbe about on Shabbos, a beautiful mimer on Shabbos, where the Alter Rebbe says that it's impossible to say that God didn't create anything on Shabbos, because the second God stops creating, the world would cease to exist. So the Alter Rebbe says, then I'm giving it over in a nutshell, but what he says over there basically is that through koyach hamachshava, Shabbos was created, and every single Shabbos that we have is recreated through the koach of the machshava itself. So now we understand why we work so hard the whole week to reach towards Shabbos. Because be'emet, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, or you were masakin me yesterday, there's no Friday, there's Erev Shabbos. All these days are a prep so that on Shabbos, my machshava could create worlds for me. Because it's that hard. It's that difficult. Maybe we could tie this into last week's learning of Tachtim, Shnim, Ushlishim also, by Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa. You could also say it's the same thing. Well, I'm not going to go into that right now, but Al Kol Panim, again, he says, B'Shabbos Nikra Noach, Shabbos, which is called Noach, you got to do whatever you need to do to have an active role in Hit Halech. I'm causing myself to walk with Hashem in through these, what the Alter Rebbe and the Arizal and Reb Chaim Vital describe as the three garments of the soul. What are the three garments of the soul? The way the soul expresses itself in this world? Machshava, dibur, and maaseh. That's the way my soul expresses itself. So on Shabbos, it has to be, all three have to be on Ba'asher Husham. Yeah.
Question. Do you have a thought on there? He's using Lashem Elohim, not Hashem here. Meaning, it's not saying connect to Hashem, he's saying you got to walk with Elohim. I don't know, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there that it struck me. I mean, this is story creation too, is Elohim. But I don't know if you have a thought on why he.
I mean, I don't have any thoughts. The tzaddikim speak about this a lot, and one of the answers is that he wasn't talking to a yid. So the way, right? So there was no Torah given in the world yet. So when he's speaking to him over there, the most that could be at that moment was just Eta Elokim.
How does that relate to us in terms of Shabbat in this? I'm like taking it a step
Oh, he's
further,
not.
or
No,
is
he's
there
not going there.
Is there no?
He's not. I'm sure there is, but he's sticking on the kavanah of the drush of this pasuk is the word hit halech. It's a very, very deep word. Listen, I want to tie it to what we said about the Ishbitzer. He said, Moshe Rabbeinu became a tefillah. That's what he was giving over in Parshas Vayeschanan. Like, if you ask Moshe Rabbeinu, who are you? He'd give different answers his whole life. But at the end of his life, when he's giving over his story about not being able to come into Eretz Yisrael, he says, I'll tell you who I became. Va'et Chanan, I became a tefillah. That's really who I was. There are people that are stuck in very, very, very dangerous places of anxiety, stress, and fear. Rahman al-Islam, Hashem should give them a lot of help. And the doctors and the therapists in the room, and any Rav today who for some reason is mistaken as both, they know more that this is what this door is dealing with more than anything. So you ask them, who have you become? And if they're honest, they'll say, I became a lehit pached person. This is who I've become. This is my mitzias. And that's why the Rebbe said 200 and something years ago that the ikar of all ikar is not to fall into that trap. The world is scary enough. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od. It's already narrow. Ve'ikar lo lehit pached klal. Don't make yourself lehit. Don't make yourself scared. Now, how does it tie in again, Shabbos? The way that he's darshaning out, Et Elokim hithalech Noach, who we have to become Noach. In this context, what does that mean? We have to become Shabbos. How? Machshava, Dibur, Umaisa. This is what we have to become. Just reminds me of a Torah. 2 trips ago to Uman. Right before we jumped back on the bus, that store was open, the store that was right next to the tziyun, and I ran in, I said, one of those, like, I'm pulling off whatever's on the top of the shelf, one of those, and it was a beautiful sefer with some, I don't know, every day there's a new sefer of someone taking Reb Nachman, Reb Nassan, and writing it up in another beautiful way. Reb Nassan says, the first quote, it goes by Otiyot, the first topic was Emet. Reb Nassan said, the Rebbe said, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od. Everyone knows the Rebbe said the whole world is a narrow bridge. And everyone knows, but okay, that still means that everyone focuses on the fact that it's narrow, but it's also a bridge. What's the name of the bridge? The bridge is called Emet. That's the name of the bridge. The bridge is called Emet. And as narrow as the world may be, if I remember the name of the bridge, and that's what I choose to walk through, all the narrowness of the world has nothing on me. That's how he was explaining En Yeush Ba'olam Klal. When I remember that the bridge is called Emet, and all I got to do is, in my own life, dive into Hashem nonstop to be connected to Emet Lamito. What does a Jew know after he tastes Shabbos for the first time? That Shabbos is my Emes. The world is a narrow bridge. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Erev Shabbos. Shabbos is the Emet. So therefore, I will do anything in my life to make sure that I don't fall into that off the bridge, because the off the bridge brings me into a word of lehit pached. So I'm going to do lehit halech. I'm going to become that to make sure that's the way of not falling off the bridge. Yefeh. We're right after the brackets over here in Bereshis, right? Shal kol panim b'Shabbos anikra noach, yedabek machshavto esa elokim. O b'machshava, o b'dibur, o b'maaseh, al kol panim. Now this is important. Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter is always bringing down the Torah for us to meet it where we are. Kol echad kefi bechinato. Don't go to Rabbi Meir for Shabbos to figure out how you should be spending Shabbos. You understand? Don't go to Rabbi Tzvi Meir on Shabbos Motzei Shabbos in order so that now you have yourself set up for how you're going to conduct yourself next Shabbos. No. Take from everyone's influence to the extent that your own ta'am will show up with the way that you are shomer on your machshava dibur ma'aseh on Shabbos. Leish hamoni b'ma'aseh. He's saying over here, for the regular hamon am, it's more like in action. Make sure your actions are more the inyan. The Talmid Chacham b'dibur. He has to make sure more that his dibur is different than Shabbos. Uletzadik v'chasid gam b'machshava. It's like he's giving us get out of jail, for free cards very easily, but we're trying to push ourselves to go weiter, right? Kamo shamati ki yesach hadas asur b'tefillin kol sheken b'Shabbos. Just like I heard, he's darshaning this whole thing about Shabbos and tefillin. Again, why don't I wear tefillin on Shabbos? We learned last week, but tefillin are still there on Shabbos. So just like on tefillin, I have to do these pe'ulot to remind myself that I'm always there. Don't think just because you keep Shabbos and you go to shul that you didn't take your tefillin off. I'm going to say that again. Don't think just because you keep Shabbos and you have guests at home and you even have a shir and you go to shul that you didn't take your tefillin off on Shabbos. It's not guaranteed. It's all the time. And there's reminders, it's all the time, and it's wonderful and it's beautiful. Top column, left, v'itnagut. B'tmimus v'pshitus. Don't become an oiber chochem. You know what that means? A smart aleck. Don't start dashing. Don't go too. Stick with tmimus and pshitus. Hi atchala tova biyoter ledveikus machshavto v'lo la'asiyach hadas. He's saying the best way to make sure you don't have hesach hadas is just thinking about this very simply. Last week in shul on Friday night we were talking about Tamim Teim Hashem Elokecha. On Tuesday night, I was at a wedding. Tuesday night. That was the wedding. Reb Chaim Kramer was there. I had the privilege of marrying off a couple that Pashut represents Tamim Teim Hashem Elokecha. And I remembered there part of the word that I forgot to say Friday night. The Maharal. We began the Maharal Friday night, but he says something else. He says that the she'ifa that we have is to do all these vortlach we learn, like all these things we learn, is to still stick with tmimus. It's to stick to being a tam. Like Yaakov Avinu, ish tam yeshevo alim. To do it in a tam way. When I try to do it like an oiber chacham, when I try to outsmart myself and kind of like take on things and do things that is not really coming from who I really am, I lose the tmimut. So the Maharal said, the opposite of the word tam is mes. And there's nothing more of a deathly feeling in this world than putting on a show for everyone and for yourself while you're realizing that you're putting on a show for everyone and for yourself. So the Maharal says, yeah, you're learning these deep Torahs, right? But just make sure your words are Shabbosdik. Just don't start memorizing, Chidushei Torah at the table, so l'shem, just so I can memorize. Just become a person that's just speaking like this. B'asher hu sham, tam. Because at a certain point, like the famous author Nesta said, you can't fool all the people all the time. וההתנהגות בתמימות ובפשיטות היא התחלה טובה ביותר לדבקות מחשבתו ולא להסיח הדעת. And when I stick with tmimus in this area, al yedeze masigim hasaga yoser gvoha, you start to reach Shabbos after Shabbos, where you realize Scott Baio does not become part of the conversations ever. Every week, more and more, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe. Every week, it's like there's another darga. It's an amazing thing. Ki al yedei sheyesh l'adam tmimus ha'emuna, harei hu mekusher lepnimius ha'inyanim. To really be connected to what's going on the inside, it's by tmimus in regard to taking on these things. Ubederech mashal. What he's saying over here is like this. We have these she'ifas to become so deep after learning Torahs like this. Rav Yaakov Meir Shechter is saying, wait, just be conscious of your dibur. Don't try to learn Yiddish. You understand? Like, it's good to learn Yiddish, but don't try to learn Yiddish to sound different this Shabbos. You understand? Just make sure. Point out moments. The Shabbos table, the dibur is different. Because when that's the way you're holding, he says, then you're really holding on to the Pnimiyus HaTorah. And he ends off this paragraph by saying like this, Ubederech mashal, כשמונחים אבנים טובות ומרגליות בתוך תיבה פשוטה, when pearls, let's say pearls, diamonds, and rubies are being kept in a very simple kufsa, in a very simple box, על ידי שאוחזים בתיבה הפשוטה, אוחזים בכל הטוב הצופן בה. How do you hold on to these pearls, diamonds, and rubies? Well, where are they placed in? It's a simple bag. How do I hold on to it? By holding on to the rubies and diamonds, I got to hold on to the simple bag. That's how I hold on to it. So it's a very simple void, what he's saying over here. All these taryalach, all these inyanim, all these ways of making sure that I'm kivyochol, feeling like an eved la'Hashem, banim atem la'Hashem lekechem, holding on to the sharvit of the melech. They come through these small, subtle changes. It's the small, subtle changes, moments of consciousness. This does not go al pi Reb Tzadok HaKohen, Os Aleph Tzidkas HaTzadik, because he says there, Reishis Knisas Adam Lavodas Hashem, Tzarich Lios B'chipasan. He says no. It's like when you left Mitzrayim, it wasn't small, subtle changes. It was the full-on. But he's speaking to someone... What's that? There's moments for both, but guys that are learning every single week, no. And he's probably saying this out of years and years of experience of the burnouts. The burnouts, which happens all the time, the burnouts. The burnouts that ran, in the beginning, to say, I'm in, run. And then you're in. But once, maybe that's what you mean by both.
I mean, like, life's long. We have a lot of experience. Like, there are moments of that. But that's the point here.
Reishis. Reb Tzadok says that it's the Reishi. The Reishis. Reb Tzadok. Reishi. Yeah, okay, I hear you. I like what I hear you saying. Huh? Like, I think Reb Tzadok is saying that decision to choose to like the PSS on his 40th birthday, I want to lead Gayer, right? So that beginning moment of choosing to say, I'm in, okay, there you got to run. But once you're in, now he's saying, okay, now you're going to learn all these vorts, you're going to go to these chaburas, you're going to hear these shmuzin, and you'll be like, oh my God, now I can't even begin to tell you this. I mean, I'm sure you have this also. The stories you see people, like my friend, I never forget this. He walked into Eish Kodesh in Woodmere after he was into Breslev for a few minutes, and he came with a Yerushalmi kapata, right? You know what the Yerushalmi one is? It's the white with the blue stripe, huh? Yeah, the kaftan, right? Yeah. So he went online to say good Shabbos to Rav Weinberger, and Rav Weinberger said to him, even the Yerushalmis don't wear this. He never put it on again afterwards, right? Now the guy could say, are you kidding me? Do you know what I was doing 2 years ago on Shabbos morning? It wasn't Shabbos, it was Saturday morning. Like he could say, wouldn't you be happy that this is at least my parsha right now? Now this guy's he was already married. And obviously Rav Weinberger's whole inyan is the health of the spiritual home. Always. It's always in the context of how is this mashpia in the house on everybody else. For those kind of things, That's what I feel like he's saying. Go with Primus and Pshitas. You're going to hold on to the bag. It's filled with all the matmonim in the world, but just make sure you hold on to the bag. It could be in a simple package, and it comes in different ways and formats. But every Shabbos, to pay more and more attention to these three manners. What am I actually doing? What comes out of here? What does it sound like? And obviously he left the world of machshava to, what did he say? Tzaddik and chassid. We're putting it all on it. He said the tzaddik and the chassid, olam machshava by them. But for all of us, we could find chizuk in all three places, and by that, what we're really doing is showing the Ribono Shel Olam, we get the message. We're your son. You're allowing us to hold your sharvit. Hashem, give us more and more of eitzas how to hold your sharvit with more and more pride. And v'ra'u chol amei ha'aretz ki shem Hashem nikra aleinu, that the way we conduct ourselves in the world, the way we walk around, people say, wow, Hashem's name is on their forehead. Forget about the world. Here in Efrat, the way that we look on Shabbos, the way we sound on Shabbos, and the way we interact with someone on Shabbos, whatever it is, doesn't mean the gefilte fish handshakes we spoke about. That's not what we're talking about. It means being present, but en ma la'asot, anachnu bria chadasha. We're completely new bria. Next week, what we're going to be seeing is Rav Yaakov Meir Shechter is going to say to us, but what happens when I don't feel Shabbos? Should I fake it? Huh?
It's there anyway.
So he's going to take us on an interesting journey of, but what happens if what happens if I'm touching my tefillin and I don't even feel, I took it off already, right? There's no shel yad, there's no shel rosh. We'll see that Be'ezrat Hashem next week. Shekoyach everyone.